Camera angle in the middle.
Benton.
Steve Benton.
Thank you.
Steve Benton. I'd like to introduce Joe this year. He saved me on this event. He's been tirelessly helping me, and I appreciate everything that he's done for the Ann Edwards Show and mental health. I'd like to introduce Joe this year.
Yay!
So sweet. Ann is a sweetie, and she is a tireless advocate for mental health. If you have not already, you can go onto YouTube and some other places on the internet and check out the Ann Edwards Show. She's been doing it for a few years now, 4 years, since 2020 or so. But yeah, so you can check that out. I'm just going to get situated here. I think we're all set up with the sound check. I'll do one last one just to make sure everybody can hear me. Oh my goodness. So,
Hope,
yeah.
were you here before? This isn't your first one.
I've been a singer-songwriter for quite some time.
We did one a couple years ago.
I'm a mental health person myself, so a lot of my music deals with that and I guess sort of questions about life and where we belong in the universe and why we're here and other grand questions. So this is an older one. I wrote this when I was 24, which scarily enough to think about was 20 years ago. But I'm still here, and that's the most important thing.
I miss Ainsley. I miss Ainsley a lot, honestly.
Into the future. So here we go.
But Riley's good enough.
Riley's busy and
All right,
I am
here we go.
different levels of flow, right?
Yeah, very different levels. How's 107?
7 is
You
fun.
have a cool team.
Yeah.
I like Megan, I like Aaron, I like all you guys.
Yeah. Megan is cool.
Look at our world from afar. There's a little rock chasing a star. Tiny speck in so much space. It makes me wonder, are we alone in this place? Just a big bang spark. Yeah, a shot in the dark. Just the luck of the draw. In a world set apart. Look up at the stars in the sky. Millions of pinpoints dancing bright. My mind gets frozen, lost in time. It makes me wonder, just who am I? Be alone in my head. Got me feeling so small. And I get so complicated. Yes, I get so complicated. Overwhelmed by it all. 'Cause everyone seems so anesthetized. We're caught up in our daily lives. Yeah, I see mine, but I dream of more. We live young. But what's it all for? But it's at least worth a shot. Gonna give it the best that I've got. For yeah, you never do know. No, you never do know what'll come down the road. Look at our world from afar. Just that little rock chasing a star. Tiny speck in so much space. It makes me wonder, are we alone in this place? Are we alone, just the human race and all out of space? A star scene.
Okay, thank you. Much appreciated. So I'm gonna pass it over back to Anne, and she's gonna describe what we're gonna do next. I think.
I hope.
We all hope. That's all we can do. Okay. There you go.
Actually, you can stay right there because we're going to be discussing bipolar now. I have bipolar for 29 years. I got postpartum depression, and then I ended up with depression and bipolar. And Joe is going to join me on this talk. So we'd like to ask some questions from the audience to get the things rolling. Is there anything that you'd like to know about bipolar that you don't understand? First of all, we'll explain the difference between bipolar 1 and bipolar 2.
Share the mic. It's kind of like an Abbott and Costello. Bipolar 1? Who's on by 1? Who's on 2? Technically, I'm on 1 and she's on 2, I think. But you're 2 plus.
Plus.
She's 2 plus plus. Whatever that means. No, I know what it is. So, okay, so yeah, educational piece. Bipolar disorder is a mood disorder. It's classified as mental health issue. It is a chemical imbalance in the brain, which is caused by a combination of certain genetical factors. I think genetical is a word, or just genetic. Well, it should be if it isn't. You know what I mean. So yes, it can be brought on by different things like the drugs or the alcohol, but only if you have the underlying genetic propensity, I guess. So there's a difference. Bipolar 1, I'll start, and you can talk about bipolar 2. So bipolar 1 is characterized by depression, obviously. Bipolar meaning highs and lows, the two extremes. Depression being the lower extreme, and mania being the upper extreme. People with bipolar 1 tend to go all the way up into space when they get manic. Space or whatever realm you might see up there. So that's the difference. Bipolar 1 people have way more intense manias, and people with bipolar 2 will get manic, but not so high, I guess. And they say 1 in every 100 people in the world roughly experiences some type of bipolar, but bipolar 1 is much less common. It's more closer to 1% of 1%, so that would be 1 in 10,000, I guess. I suppose 1 in 100. So now it's your turn, man.
Bipolar 2 is depression and anxiety. I suffer from depression and I'm in bed for 2 weeks. People would, at the shelter where I was staying at near the bridge, they would knock on the door and they would say, hello, is anybody in there? And I would sheepishly say yes and go to the door and get my meal like I was in jail. I couldn't get up to shower. I couldn't watch TV. I thought I was the worst person in the world and that nobody liked me and I didn't have any friends and I didn't have a life. And it went on and then finally one day I got up and took a shower and I went to Lawton to get my medication. I didn't think I'd have the strength to walk across the street, let alone get dressed and be suitable to talk to people and to communicate. I've struggled with bipolar with employment. I get a job, lose a job, get a job, lose a job. But finally I found my calling. I opened up an email in 2020 and it said I was nominated for an award at the Amplify East Visionary Award for Women in Atlantic Canada, selected for changing somebody's life. And it changed my life because I have a purpose now. I want to help people with mental health and addictions transition back into society, work, and employment and housing are big issues. We're going to hear from Eric next. He's going to talk a little bit about Near the Bridge, but I struggled with the depression side. Now the mania, well, when I was married, my husband came home and there was 2 new vehicles in the driveway. And Nicholas said, Mom, Ann went shopping. He called me Ann, he didn't call me Mom. I went to the local dealer in Nissan and I bought an Xterra on Monday, and by Wednesday I bought an Altima. $70,000 worth of vehicles sitting in my driveway, and we couldn't even park because they were there. So I owned 3 vehicles at the time, and I had to do something, so I went back to the dealership, explained that I was having a manic episode, and I thought I could buy the vehicles and be able to drive 3 cars at once.
We were going to do introductions of us, and we kind of probably didn't do that yet. Ann Edwards is here. She's, I don't know, people here tend to know Ann probably more than me. It's your show, I mean, that kind of makes sense. But I would say that you're just like a tireless advocate for mental health. I know that you had a long history, like you're well educated, you know, and you've done a long time working in television and reporting and that sort of thing, so that kind of helps your ability to become involved with these types of events. And I just wanted, you got a story in there about mania, so I want to throw my own story in there too. We got lots of stories as bipolar people.
Real lives, real
Yeah.
stories, real people.
Yeah, real craziness.
What did you do?
I did all kinds of things, and I you know, it's hard because, you know, it's not something that I really ever planned on doing, of course, and basically what happens is when you're manic, everything seems like a cool idea, everything's interesting, everything's wonderful. Spending money, yep, did that a few times. I gave away $30,000 on the streets of Spring Garden once in an afternoon, in 20s and $100 bills, because people needed the money. And I had the money. Unfortunately, that money came from my line of credit. So, yeah, regretted that one. But, I mean, it's interesting because money is a thing that people value very extremely in society. And then when people are not well mentally health-wise, they're like, well, I don't need it. And they're right to a certain extent. Of course, it's not particularly smart financial advice to do so, but I guess the point is, from my personal perspective, is when I'm manic or bipolar, having issues with it, I want to help people. It's not like, you know, and I don't value money in that way. And then with Ann saying about buying a lot of vehicles, I did that too. It's like everything's like, you know, you're very present in the moment. It's like, oh, 50 grand for that car? Sure, why not? It's nice, I need that. It's just so there's lots of crazy stories like that. But did you want to introduce me as well, just so people go? Huh? Yes, I talked to you about it in the car. You did? Okay. Okay. All right, that's fair. My name is Joe Legier. I very quickly will say that I moved to Halifax in 2001. I was diagnosed with bipolar 1 when I was 15. Had a massive manic episode in grade 10, which was very young, and I think I pretty much became or felt like I was Jesus Christ incarnated, and climbed up on a table in the library and started preaching to the whole school, which, you know, looking back on it may not have been a wise choice, but it wasn't a choice, but it happened, and I was hospitalized directly after that, and you know, treated and struggled over the years. Like periodically I would get better and then I'd be fine, and then it would happen again, and then I'd be hospitalized, and then I'd go through a period of being okay, and over and over and over again. But I did come to Halifax in 2001, and I was one of the first members of a wonderful place called Lang House, which I was a member there for a number of years, and later ended up coming back to work there as a staff member, which was really cool. And through my involvement in Lang House, I became a member of the Mental Health Commission of Canada. And that was a big, huge opportunity, and I served 5 years with them. And since then, I've done all kinds of stuff mental health related. It's a passion. I think Anne has that same passion for mental health and working there and helping people. So at the end of the day, it's been an interesting road. It's been difficult, but I am happy to have that passion and work in the field. So that's me.
I was born in London, England in 1963 to Robert and Marjorie Edwards. My father was a concert pianist. My father was a concert pianist, and he adjudicated all over the world, and he was a teacher at the local high school in St. John. So I used to be in the plays. I was in Brigadoon, Carousel, My Fair Lady, Annie Get Your Gun, Fiddler on the Roof. So I was an actress from the beginning, and I loved being the center of attention. So when it was time to decide what to do after high school, my mother sat me down and she said, well, you're really good at writing and you like writing stories. Why don't you become a journalist? Okay, so I did. I went to Dal, I did my BA in English and political science. I did a radio broadcasting diploma and a diploma in international business and marketing. And then I came home and my mom was dancing around the living room because I was on TV. She goes, my daughter's on TV, she's on TV. She was so excited. And it was such a good first job to get out using my degree. And then I went on to work for DeVry Institutes of Technology. I was living in Toronto by myself, engaged. I said, you're going to get engaged before I leave or I'm not doing this. So we got engaged and I went to Toronto for 2 years. I got assistant regional manager for Eastern Canada, and I won a trip. The best trip I've ever won was a trip to Long Beach, California, and dinner on the Queen Mary. Rented a convertible and went along the coast to San Francisco for my honeymoon. And I got top sales of 289 representatives. I came #1 in the entire company. I've always done sales and marketing. I like it when they say no, because I can make them say yes. I'm going to do another lunch and learn. I'm not going to give up until I have this place crowded. There needs to be more people like you come out and listen to us, because we have triggers. Let's talk about triggers.
Triggers? Okay.
When I'm on the phone and I've been waiting with Revenue Canada for 6 hours and they hang up on me, it triggers me. It makes me mad. I wasted my whole day, and then they finally say, click, and you don't even get to talk to them. The best advice for resources is 211. They're excellent. You can phone and you can ask them. Sometimes they look up numbers they're not supposed to be for me because they know me so well. Joe, would you like to talk about triggers for a little bit?
Sure, yeah. Oh, triggers are, okay, so, yes, triggers are an excellent, interesting word. I would say that they're kind of a word that's used a lot. That triggers me or whatnot, but when it comes to mental health stuff, they're particularly important because I would say that probably the vast majority of things in mental health that are negative for people are related to stress. There have been studies that show that stress causes cancer. There's been studies that show that stress can cause all kinds of mental health problems. And so to me, when I think about triggers, I think about, well, everyone's a unique person, but if you're someone living with mental health issues, what are the things that really stress you out? So maybe it's your mother, and she calls you on the phone and she's like, what are you, and you're like, oh my goodness, you know, that's a trigger. Because if it stresses you out, then I would say that it can exacerbate and or cause a lot of problems. So that's kind of what I think about when thinking of triggers. There could be lots of things. You want like examples?
give us an example of a trigger for you?
Oh, okay. Well, one of the big ones for me, it's not a physical trigger so much as sleep. If I am losing sleep over time, like if I don't sleep for a whole night and I try to go through the next day, that's really bad. Or if I'm losing sleep as in like only getting a couple hours here and there every night over a week or something like that, that's a trigger for my illness. Is that an example?
Yes.
Okay, your turn. What do you got? Something good.
I'd like to talk about mania. I love mania. I love being in a manic state.
It is pretty awesome.
It is awesome. If you talk to somebody with bipolar and you ask them would they rather be depressed or have mania? Mania. 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 I'm not going to go out and buy any more vehicles because I'm poor. I was homeless in my car for 10 months. And the reason why I started this podcast is because there weren't resources available. You go to the place, and I had a car. Like my friend said, I never met a homeless person with a car and a cell phone. Well, I had both. So I went to try to get some help, and the resources were not there. And they were very mean to me because I was homeless. And it was a very difficult time living in the car. And then I was year and a half at near the bridge. Near the bridge is a shelter that Eric, if you'd like to come up, we're going to talk about near the bridge.
Sure.
Eric Johnson near the bridge. First
Just
of
call the bridge.
the bridge. Well, I live near it. This is Eric. Introduce yourself, Eric.
Hi, my name is Eric Johnson. I work at the bridge. And I've known him for what? At least 5 or 6 years now. How long have you been with him for?
Oh, 5 or 6 years.
Yeah, 5 or 6 years. What did you want me to talk about?
Just
Everything?
tell me about you and what you do.
Yeah, I worked in the field of homelessness, I guess, for the last few years. And yeah, I don't know, I could just talk forever about homelessness and mental health. And that's the biggest thing. And I think Anne brings up a good point of like some people say they've never met a homeless person with a car and a cell phone, right? And sometimes that can put people off because they think, oh, homeless people are people that were sleeping in the park across the street here. But there's so many people who could be homeless and you would never really know because they just look like you or me, right? And the same thing with mental health. Sometimes people, you don't know if people are struggling with their mental health because, you know, they're not standing on Spring Garden Road giving away 20s and 50s and $100 bills. They're just walking down the street, but they don't really struggle with their mental health and you never know. And I think that's one of those things I've learned over time is that you gotta treat everybody, you know, you try to treat everybody the way you want to be treated, of course, but also you gotta treat everybody like you don't know what they're going through. You know, that really helps. Working okay?
It is, sure. I was just gonna say, like, not even to interrupt you, like, just to say, like, as far as triggers go, the biggest one is safety. So, if we're talking about losing sleep or, like, things that stress you out, the biggest thing I could possibly think of was stressing when I was like, I don't have a home. I've got nowhere to go tonight. I don't know where I'm gonna get my next meal. I don't know if I'm gonna sleep in the park, someone's gonna rob me. So like there's such a thing as the Maslow's table of pyramid of needs basically, and hierarchy of needs. Thank you. The one at the very bottom, meaning like the foundational piece of that hierarchy, is safety, and that's housing for sure. But continue on.
Yeah, you know, and I was just thinking the first times I met Anne, like it was like you have so many things going on here. She's one of the best advocates that I've ever seen for herself, and she's one of the best people that can get a job.
Started bingo.
Yeah, she started bingo at the place where I work now, and she can get a job like nobody I've ever seen before. And she seems to have everything together, but sometimes you don't know what's going on underneath, which I think is what you're kind of alluding to here, is like sometimes we don't talk about the struggles that we're facing behind closed doors, why we don't get up, why we don't go to work that day, why we don't do what we said we're going to do, why we don't follow through on commitments, because people are facing these battles that you don't know, and I think it's always good I think what it is a man, I work as a manager now, I've got a lot of staff that work with us, and I always have to extend the same kind of compassion to our staff as we do to some of the people we don't know, because there's some people we work with, because everybody struggles with and mental health affects the people who are housed just as much sometimes as the people who are unhoused. They might not have the triggers like.
You are now on the internet.
Good feedback.
We're trying our best because we don't have a good job there, but we're making it work. So your name again is?
My name is Eric Johnson. I work at the bridge over in Dartmouth there. So there's homeless shelter. I was trying to think of anything else I was going to talk about today.
What about when somebody has a tantrum or they have an issue with another resident? How do you handle the situation without having to call them?
That's a good question. We all know that sometimes police are important and they can help out, but a lot of times police, just by nature of their training and who they are, can escalate a situation. So we try to avoid calling the police on people because sometimes, well, we all know too in Nova Scotia, there's not a lot of resources for people that are going through a crisis. There's not a lot of supports there for people outside of maybe hospitalization against their will if it's that severe, but sometimes it's just like, oh, you're just having a crisis and there's nothing we can do. We can take you to the cells and lock you up for a day and then release you and it's you're back where you came from. And it's really sad. Yes, especially people that have already been criminalized, like they don't want to ask for help because, you know, the mobile mental health crisis team might show up with the police and there might be a warrant out for them. They don't want to reach out for that. So at the bridge, we really try to avoid calling the police when we need to because we see sometimes they don't have the training, they don't have the skills needed sometimes to support folks. And our staff and the people that work there and the other residents and people that live there sometimes know how to be patient with people. They can take the time to kind of talk with people and give them the space that they need and the room that they need to process, I guess, what they're going through. And to, you know, we always say, like, if you want to like scream or yell, that's fine. You can go do it outside in the parking lot. You can do it as long as you're not harming somebody else or harming yourself. Like, we try to give people space and check their own biases sometimes of like, yeah, what's normal, but also why am I uncomfortable here? Is that something that I have to process? You know, does this trigger me? Like if there's somebody yelling in my face sort of thing, does that trigger me? Or is that a response that I can change with myself? Or do I just ask, you know, exit from the situation and let them just like yell outside? I don't need to be here, get yelled at, I'm gonna take them and they can have their space.
Challenging work program.
We always, and also when it's nice to just have the space to people. It can be rewarding, it's rewarding with people like you, but sometimes you get really frustrated when housing for people, right? Sometimes we have to ask them.
How many people have you housed since they just celebrated their year anniversary? 1 year.
Yeah, 1 year and 1 month now. I don't know how many people we've housed. That's one of those things of like, we try to measure success based on what is good for people. So for people that move on from here and move into their own apartment, that is success and we'd like to celebrate that. But going back to like the support for people who are really struggling with their mental health is they're probably not going to be able to live independently in their own apartment because sometimes people's mental health is so severe there's no support for those people. And so success for them would be just living with us for a couple months and not going back out on the street, not being back in the parks, or sometimes just not having to call 911 and go to the emergency room for mental health crisis. And that's what success looks like for some people. So,
I just put a question like the relationship between homelessness, mental health, and then drug and addictions. In the mental health world, they always call it mental health and addictions for a reason, because they're not only do they happen at the same time, but they're actually very closely linked in a lot of ways. So I was just wondering, guys, from your experience, what do you think or feel is like the barrier that like a lot of shelters have, where there's rules obviously against drugs and alcohol? How do you guys sort of overcome that in order to give people options, even who might be using them?
We like to look at everything from a, I guess, like an individual approach. We have a couple of rules, but we really try to like think about the context and I think about safety really. Like if somebody's going to use drugs or become intoxicated, like is that harming anybody? And if we have rules that are going to prohibit them from coming to stay inside with us, or they're going to living outside, because if that's going to cause harm to them, well, as long as they're fine, we usually don't have any kind of rules around what you can do like that. But like you said, it's also intertwined mental health and addiction, and yeah, sometimes the drugs. In the beginning, drugs can be a trigger for those things. But there's so many people I've learned that use drugs to self-medicate, to cope. And they've got so many things going on, and because they haven't found another way that works, the drugs sometimes help their brain silence what's going on in their head.
You know, a lot of the time I think that people are fiercely independent, and that you're like, well, I don't care if you have a shelter space for me because I'd rather go sleep on a bench or in a tent somewhere because that means I can do what I want. And so, like, the drugs and alcohol and all fits into that equation, I guess. So I just think that that's a challenge that I don't know the answer to. I thought maybe we could talk about it.
Like the answer is you just got to provide a range of support for people. Like some people prefer, other shelters, some shelters over other ones. Some people prefer where we're at, where you have your own room. But some people feel being in your own room and not actually, like Amazon going for weeks on end can be really bad for that. People don't they want to be surrounded with other people. So I think the key is just not having a one size fits all approach. You need to really tailor it to people and that's why there's different shelters and
That's why bingo has been such a success, because I saw people would meet me in the smoking area. I don't smoke cigarettes, but I was out in the smoking area, and they said, I wish there was something to do. I'm so bored, I just wish there was something to do. So I started the bingo, and my best showing was 47, which is a quarter of the population showed up for bingo one night. So people got to talk to people, they got to get friendly with people, and they got to get out and do something. Like Monday night or bingo night.
More than a quarter of the population, like 30% almost, I'd say. But yeah, it's and we just got to provide all those different supports for people. And yeah, so many people have said, like, why don't we have these meetings? Why don't we have work programming? Why don't we have craft night and these things? And we're lucky to be able to work with people to do what they want to do in those things, because some people feel that social isolation in the hotel room that, if you're living outside or living in other shelters, you see people all the time. That sucks for some people, but some people really like that. So I don't know what else I have to say about this. I could talk about this forever, but I feel like there's other folks down here. So thank you guys for having me on the show.
Thank you so much for coming and bringing the karaoke stuff that we didn't need, but it was awesome to bring that. We appreciate your viewpoint, man, and we have a couple of folks over here from Coverdale. Yes, and so you can introduce them.
Yes. Thank you very much, Eric. Thanks for coming.
I have to run because my car is going to get a ticket soon.
I know all about tickets. Don't tell me about tickets. Ooh. Thanks, Eric.
Thank you, Ann.
I'd like to introduce Roberta Morrison from Coverdale. She's going to explain what she does for Coverdale and how important it is to get the help you need. Roberta?
All right, I gotta go. Shoot.
Nice meeting you.
Good to meet you.
Yeah.
Good luck with your Bob Dylan.
Thanks.
I do like Bob Dylan.
Yeah, that's sort of like
If you don't mind. No. Sorry about that. She's trying to clean up.
She's not wrong, I just had hip replacement. So back to my story, was the first time I met Ann was 4.5 years ago. She was living in her car, and she came to the justice system, and she said, I need help, I need help, I need help. So anyway, through Coverdale, we managed to get her into a place and out of her car. And she was somewhat happy, but not quite, because as we know, people who suffer from mental health don't stay in places for very long. There's a amount of issues that come along with that. And so we fought with the tenancy board to help with some other issues, and finally got her into the bridge. And she stayed for a while. Now she's into her own place. But for Ann, when I see her with this type of accomplishment, to me, it's overwhelming. I really, truly am very, very proud of what she does. And she lives for allowing her to be here, once a month. I think it's a great tribute to her mentally. And I think that as this grows for her, she'll do much, much, much better. Things will get bigger and better for her again. And then build up self-esteem and confidence as well. So Coverdale, what do we do? Coverdale is a non-profit organization. It's been around since 1923. we basically deal with incarcerated women who are coming out of jail that the court has deemed that they're on certain conditions that must be met, and one could be attending court to see a probation officer, or take a certain program for anger management, how to deal with harm reduction, stuff like that. We put on a number of programs that come together to address these. We also will accompany people to court to make sure they make their court appearances on time. Because a lot of folks forget, as you know, we're so busy doing other things after they've been incarcerated for a while, they forget what they're supposed to do and what they're obligated to do by the court. So we'll address that with them and take them to court when they have to appear. We have 2 homes under Coverdale. One is called Caitlin's Place, which is the first house we've done. It used to be a bail house at one time, but now it's more or less a residential place where women who are coming out of jail need a place to go. We'll go to Caitlin's Place, a little older. Then Honor House deals with the youth within the community that have been in trouble and are coming out and need a place to stay as well. So there's 2 homes, and then we have home offices who I deal with, which is basically community. So I will liaison with a number of organizations that will, for example, Avalon Place deal with domestic violence and women that go through that process, or within the Black community, the Institute of Justice, they have an organization that deal with Black folks within the community. We deal with those folks as well. So we do a lot to educate women on what their rights are and how to deal with the tragedies that they've gone through, and understand that because you've been in trouble doesn't mean that you have to stay in trouble. There are better ways to live your life every day than having to say, okay, if I break the law, this is the only thing I know, and it's not. You know, we try to educate folks around how to live a better, cleaner life, and a lot of women deal with addiction. Addiction, mental health is one of the two biggest things that Coverdale deal with the most. And we don't have enough mental health folks out there to help us sort of, you know, educate women on what the mental health is really all about. And so it makes it hard. We need more educated mental health workers in the community. We also need to have places for them to go. And so if we could fix that to our government, it would be a great idea. But right now, it's up to organizations such as us to be able to be there and help them out. Addiction, we have 180, we have courses that we do with our clients as well to sort of help them get through the addiction process. And again, it's not an easy thing to do because most women who are severely addicted know the drugs better than everything else. And so we're trying to help them get through that. The Bridge is a great place for that, but I have clients who stay for maybe 2 weeks minimum because their addiction is so bad. My colleague is here, her name is McKinley, and she is a second-year law student, and we want to put a little input into something. I would like you to do so.
McKinley? Thank you, Roberta.
Hi, so as Roberta sort of mentioned, my name is McKinley. I am going into my 3rd year at the Halifax University Schulich School of Law. And I started at Coverdale last summer through an internship where I was working with Roberta doing research, but then also court support work. And then I was fortunate enough to be able to stay on with Coverdale afterwards on a part-time basis while I was attending school. And then this summer I came back on full-time. So my role is called an Access to Justice Coordinator, but I think that that's just a fancy word to say that I do lots of research on how to make justice more accessible to those who are vulnerable in the community. So as Roberta already mentioned, we work mostly with women and gender diverse people. So those are the kinds of people who are living in the houses that Coverdale runs, which is Caitlin's Place and Honor House. But then, as Roberta, I think, is trying to be modest and not pointing out, she has over 70 clients that she serves in the community herself. And then another one of our coworkers, Summer, also has 60 clients that she serves in the community. So Roberta has to easily be one of the busiest people I know. And my role, I guess, is to sort of help provide more of a legal lens for the problems that the women and gender diverse people are facing. And I think a good way to tie it back into what we were sort of talking about before is that Mental health challenges are a real pathway to the criminal justice system for women and gender diverse people specifically. Lots of the people that we work with have come in contact with the justice system because they were struggling with their mental health. And if they had had access to supports maybe a little bit earlier, they wouldn't have gained the charges that they're now facing. So what we can do for them is sort of liaise with their lawyers and to help provide them with information so that they understand the process and they know what to expect. But then also we can connect them to all of those legal supports like legal aid or with community supports if they're also struggling with housing and addiction. I don't know if there's anything else you would like me to talk about?
What is it like most about working with Roberta?
I mean, what's not to like about working with Roberta? But I would say that it's really nice that I think Roberta and I have very different perspectives on things. Roberta's just a little bit older than me, so she can bring that context, and she's also African, right? Yeah. She's also African Nova Scotian, so I think that she has a little bit of a different perspective than I have. And she's also from here, whereas I am from Ontario. So I think that what I like is that she gives me the opportunity to voice my opinions, but then we also can have a dialogue where we have different perspectives on things, and we can offer different expertise, whereas I would say Roberta is more connected to the community. I can provide more of that legal background for some of the issues that we're facing, and I think that we make a really good team coming together to help address people's issues as quickly as we can.
Thank you so much, and good luck with your journey. So if there's any questions or anything, if anybody wants to add anything. No, we're bringing up Is Steve there?
We have one more.
Okay, we're just trying to figure it out. Anybody that didn't get to the silent auction in the house, if you'd like to put your money where your mouth is, I'm just kidding. Put your money down and it'll help people in this community. So we're just waiting for a few minutes.
Okay, so while we are just waiting, we have another panel member who is actually a close friend of mine, and he is the man who introduced me to Anne, which was about 2 weeks ago, not even now. But that would be Mr. Stephen Benton, wonderful guy. He, timing-wise, was a little funny because he'd been here since February and working closely with Anne on a bunch of things, but unfortunately for us, but luckily for him, he just went back to Toronto, which was what he was trying to do for the past quite long time. But Stephen works for a financial company here well, it's a global company, but it's called Primerica, and that is here in Nova Scotia, in Dartmouth. They have an office. But what Stephen does, and he does a lot of things, but his philosophy, I'll let him talk about it, but essentially he is trying to help people of different communities. Stephen is hard to miss the guy. He's about 6'6" and a former professional basketball player, so you can't miss him. But his community, of course, he's from Philadelphia, but he connects to the African community, African Canadian, and African American community, well, here in Nova Scotia and abroad. He's just an amazing guy, and we're trying to get him on the Zoom. Hopefully, we can do so. Steve can hear me, I know he can. So the Bluetooth speaker is connected to my laptop, Steve Lavalier. If you are able to get Steve and if he's available, that would be wonderful. If not, we can certainly move things in a different direction. There is still more music to be played, I think.
Do you want to sing?
Oh, I could. Why don't can you get on and chat with Steve and I'll just play some instrumental stuff maybe?
Sure.
Okay, we'll do that.
Well, actually, we'll probably wrap it up and do the silent auction.
Yeah.
Right, but I just was wondering if Steven's available. If not, then we. Okay. All right. Well, that's fair. We'll work with the people who are here. I guess I'll play one more song then, Ed.
Yes.
Okay. Yes, ma'am.
I'm gonna do the draw for the door prize. Who would like to draw? I'll let you.
Do the drum roll.
Okay, the winning ticket for Montana's Steakhouse is 1301538.
Yo, I got a winner.
Are you the winner?
Oh my husband love that.
Steak is steak, especially these days. It's like gold. All right.
All right, Roberta.
Very quick sound check because I was messing with the volumes there, but it should be okay. Just let me know if the sound's reasonable. Check. Good. Yeah. Right on. All right. So, in life, and especially if you live with a mental health problem or know someone who does, family member, all those things, I've learned through my years that it's very important to be adaptable, and we have certainly done so today. We've done we had a couple of things go not the way we expected, but hey, you gotta roll with the punches, right, Ed? 100%. So that's it, and that's I think why there's a thing called resiliency in life, and I think it is probably one of the greatest skills that anyone can have, because I like to say that 99% of the things that happen to us in this world and this life and this existence are completely out of our control. And the funny thing is that the more that a person tries to control these things, the less they tend to work out the way you want them to. So it's sort of the fundamental law of the universe if that's the case. But we like to try to just go with the flow and adapt when we can and have a good time. And we want to thank everybody who came out, especially people who were here earlier who had to leave. And we know that we've got Steve Lavalier on Steve TV broadcasting this whole thing, so we're hoping to reach a lot more people that way. And maybe some people who are just hanging around the restaurant somewhere back there listening. I'm sure you're out there. Maybe. So we got one last song for you.
The lights are in my face. I couldn't tell if you were looking at me.
Oh no, I wasn't looking at you.
Definitely listen.
Hey you. No, I wasn't looking. I was just looking around. But no, I appreciate everybody here, and resiliency is a thing, and it's not everybody needs it and everybody has it. But from my experience, those who have been through the many hardships of mental health over the years are stronger for it. And I'd like to talk about us being the people who have been touched by fire, as they say, the fire of mental health and that sort of stuff. That we're like steel that has been hardened in a fire over time and pounded by a hammer many times, but we're still here. So this last song is actually not quite so dark. It's a little bit more hopeful than that. But sort of the premise is still there. The idea being that the song's called Under the Sun, and it just refers to the fact that even at night, at the worst time of night when everything's dark, that the sun is still underneath our feet, essentially. It's still there. We may not see it at that moment, but it is still there. So that's what this one is called. I hope you enjoy, and thank you so much for listening. Here we go. 1, 2, 3, go.
Stare up at the moonlit super sky, and I try to talk to God, but I get no reply. Dream and see of reality surrounds me in sleep. All along the sun still burns beneath my feet. Yes, all along the sun still burns beneath my feet. Even in my darkness hour of midnight, the world interferes with my line of sight. There's a strange sense of faith, oh, that I found. Keeps our feet on the ground as we go around and around and around, round and around, round in our heads. We all go around and around and around and around. But it's in our heads, it's in our heads, it's in my No, I never tried to take this life for granted. No, surely to someday reap the seeds that I planted. And that the sun would only shine on me for a while. Glad and soak up all the rainy days of the night. Glad and soak up all those rainy days for a while. Even in our darkest hour of midnight, everything's wrong and nothing seems right. There's a strange sense of faith, oh, that I have found. Keeps my feet on the ground as we go around and around and around, round and around, round in our heads. We all go around and around, around and around. It's in our heads, it's in our heads, it's in my you stare up at that moonlit super sky, and you're trying to talk to God, but you get no reply. I cried a lie, there's a cycle, it takes time to repeat. All along the sun still burns beneath your feet. I cried a lie, there's a cycle, it takes time to repeat. All along the sun still burns and turns and turns beneath our feet.
So that's it for the musical portion. I'm going to pass her back over to Miss Edwards for whatever she wants to say. Annabelle, ooh, I like it. There you go, Annabelle. Joabelle? Okay, sure.
Well, how was that, you guys? That was great. Another round of applause for Joe. Joe, thank you very much for all you've done. And I've known him less than 2 weeks, and I feel like I've known him all my life.
You need a hug. You want a hug?
We'll hug later. Also, I'd like to extend my deep, warmest condolences to Meredith Cox. Her grandfather is dying in the hospital, so she couldn't come today. And I said, that's quite an excuse. No, I'm just kidding. I didn't say that. It is a very good excuse. But the people that are here, Roberta and her cohort, and I especially like to thank Liz Green Ingram for letting us set up again. And I hope you enjoyed the show. Maybe you'll get your silent auction item that you want, Liz. She was stalking the silent auction earlier, seeing if anybody was going to beat her. Then her brother's here, and he's doing the same thing. So I guess I'll have to do another silent auction. But I'd like to thank everybody for coming. Liz, once again, thank you for letting us have this space. And I'd like to thank all of my guests for coming. And we're going to just tally up the silent auction, and then everybody's free to go. Thank you very much.